great day so far. I know I'm ending it off, but so we're going to move from technical to a little bit more big picture thinking and changing and altering your process. So should I take it away?
Go for it, man.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Michael. So today I'm going to talk about going beyond compliance. And one of the things I've recognized over the last 30 years is from when I first came in the industry, there was a lot of talk about sales, motivating clients, and we talked about everything from that perspective. And I've seen the pendulum swing to now where there's a lot of talk about compliance. And I think it's been a negative situation for our clients because we've lost this, it's become an anti-sales culture. And I think that has a negative impact on our clients. So that's what I want to talk about a little bit today. So our objectives is mindset matters, leading and motivating, simple adjustments I'm hoping you'll be able to make to your sales and compliance processes to have a major impact. So I look at us as professionals as well as entrepreneurs. And in my opinion, a professional, first of all, should always be looking to serve their clients at the highest possible level. They should be growing, continually getting better to make sure they're doing their best. But also as entrepreneurs, our goal is to maximize revenue and our impact, and we want to have efficient use of our time and resources. And I'm going to share a personal example of outside of our industry to help illustrate this. So due to, I guess, some family history, maybe the sports I played, I had a lot of hip issues. And at a fairly early age, I needed to have hip replacement surgery. Now, I interviewed two surgeons after selecting from a variety of surgeons. I interviewed two surgeons. They're both compliant. They both explained to me what the risks were, explained all the details of the surgery. But how I chose one surgeon over the other was the vision of the future that that surgeon gave me, that I felt confident that I was going to get my life back. And so I chose that surgeon. And after the surgery, I would say I had a great result. And when I compare it to other people that had similar surgeries, my result, I think, was superior. But 4 years later, I had my next hip replaced. And my experience was a lot different. So when I compare those two experiences, so the first time I had it done, even though it was very good, I was 2 days in the hospital. I needed to use crutches for about a week and a half. I need to use a cane for about another 2 to 3 weeks. And I was quite fully recovered after 6 weeks. I also needed to I was prescribed pretty heavy pain medication. 4 years later, the same surgery, the same surgeon, same surgery. I was only 1 day in the hospital. I only need to use a cane for 3 days. Within about a week, I was up and functional in most of my activities. And I was prescribed a few Tylenol 3. So a drastic difference. Why? Because I had a professional who embraced these three principles. If he was only focused on compliance, or he would have been like probably 95% of the other surgeons, he would have been doing things exactly the same way he's always done it. And he would have been compliant, it would have been fine, it would have met the minimum standard required. But I didn't want to deal with someone that met the minimum standard. And I don't think our clients want to deal with someone that hits the minimum standard. They want to deal with people who want to excel. And to excel, we need to embrace these principles. And so I want to look at a few examples of some of the roles that we have and how we might think about it from a compliance standpoint, but how can we perform better to meet those three principles? And if I think about us as advisors, sometimes we're order taking, which is a pretty simple sales process. Sometimes we're doing full needs planning. And I want to also look at servicing and integrating blocks of business because I think it's quite popular now with the aging demographics of our advisory force that people are buying blocks of business and trying to incorporate them into their business, or they're bringing in a junior advisor who would be their successor. So I want to look at that as well. So first of all, let's take a look at order taking. So order taking is quite simple. All I have to do, someone has a request, they're aware, they have a need, they say, I need critical illness, I need disability, and I can document that, fulfill that order, and I'm fine from a compliance standpoint. But have I done the best job for my client? And I would say I haven't. And what I would add to my process is I would have a process that, and if I had a firm and I had advisors that I was working with, I would require that they had a process in any order they took. I would use compliance as my reason or my excuse to do it, saying that I cannot fulfill that order until I do this, because everyone needs to know these things before they can make an informed decision. And I would have an agenda that I follow. So for instance, even if I was taking an order for disability where I felt the person was aware of what they needed and I could fulfill the order quite simply, I would still go one step further and I would say, this is what anybody needs to know to make a proper decision around disability insurance. They have to understand the market. And I can explain and do an overview of the market in about 2 to 3 minutes, which will help them really understand disability in probably greater detail than many advisors know it. Why do they need it? Contract definitions and features. And what we're going to do is I'm going to put your information in the computer, let you negotiate with yourself and how much you want to spend versus type of protection you need. So you will design, and we will design together the ideal plan to suit your need and budget. Now, I can go through this agenda and do it within probably about 20 to 30 minutes. And the difference is going to be drastic because now I have a client that understands why they bought what they bought, how good it is. And now when they look at that payment every month, they're not looking at, well, I did it because the bank required me to do it or someone required me to do it. They understand why they did it, the quality of what they have, and they can feel confident they made the best possible decision. So it's performing at a higher level, and that's also going to lead to introductions, referrals, and it's going to help me grow my business by taking that extra step. Same thing with critical illness. So for instance, for me, critical illness, everyone needs to understand why it was invented, why do you need it, where does it fit within your financial plan, and what design is best for you. And if I can answer those questions succinctly, efficiently, but also that has emotional impact for the client, it's going to enhance that sales process. So even on simple things like order taking, if I go a step further, I'm going to have a much better result. Now let's take a look at planning. And with planning, what I've found over the last, I guess, 20 or 30 years, we've gone from, again, those same principles or the same things I talked about earlier to, you know what, I got to get this fact sheet filled out because that's what compliance requires. So I get that fact sheet filled out. I put it in my computer program. It spits out a beautiful 50-page report, which justifies what I'm selling. And we've lost the essence of what the value we truly bring is, because that part of the sales process is commoditized. That's commodity. That's, robo advisors can do the same thing. They can have someone fill out a questionnaire and they can spit out a report. That's not what clients need. What do clients need from us? Tony Robbins says, if you want to change your life, change the questions you ask yourself every day. And I think for us, the value we bring are the right questions, the power of the right questions. And I think it's up to us to think about our market and think about what are some of the powerful questions. I just took some from some of my material that I've put together for our advisors. But one of the key questions which I've taken from the Strategic Coach program, Dan Sullivan, which I think is a great question to start with in most situations, is if we were sitting here 3 years from today, what would have to happen in your lives financially, relationship, family, career? Open it up and have that broad discussion. Because what should I be doing for my clients? I need to help them create and build a vision for their futures, because they might have some ideas, but I want to get them to verbalize it. I want them to think about it. When people start to think and verbalize and communicate about their dreams, their plans, their goals, what happens? They're already taking steps to attain it. And if I can get couples discussing these questions and these issues, it's going to have a major impact. So if I have 2 advisors with 500 clients, one advisor, or maybe let's say 200, maybe 500 is too many. I'm being too ambitious, maybe 100 or 200. If I have that advisor with 200 clients and one advisor with 200 clients that just does it the basic way, doesn't really ask the question, doesn't do and start to help a client explore their future, what's going to be the difference? in those clients' lives, in their financial well-being, but what else? Also, I bet you I'm going to have less divorce in that group of clients. I'm going to have much happier people because they've thought about it. That question's coming up and they're continually readapting and adjusting and helping them meet their goals. And again, I would point to a personal example that I had. I started my business in 2000. 2003, I was given a question or asked to answer a question. And that was, do you want to sell? And so me and my two business partners had to really address that question. So we had to further identify what we truly wanted and what was our business plan. And when we started to explore that question, we came to a conclusion that definitely we didn't want to sell. But what it did, the fact that I was asked that question, if I would have been asked that question, we would have never done that detailed exploration and really mapped out what the future looked like. Because we did, it had a drastic impact on my life. So that's the power we have as financial advisors. That cannot be commoditized. And so that's what we need to focus on, the value we bring. The other area I wanted to talk a little bit about is servicing and integrating blocks of business. And, I compare my enter into the industry compared to advisors often who start by, or very early in their career, they start to work with a senior advisor and start to work with their, maybe B and C and D clients. And I can just experience, I can just express the frustration that a lot of people have. So they buy a block of business and they think, I'm going to integrate that block of business. And the top 20 or 30% of clientele, we're great at working with. But the challenge is that other 70%. And if we don't effectively work with that other 70%, they can become a drain, not only financially, but emotionally, and it can become a major challenge. But a lot of times the issue is compliance. Well, I got to be compliant. I got to get that block compliant. And it just seems extremely onerous. And so what we need to do is we need a process. We need a process that can guide us through to sift through that 70% to find out maybe there are a few gold nuggets that should be in my A clientele, but also to sift out what's silver, what bronze, and what are just merely rocks that I got to kind of deal with to make sure they're not really going to be part of my growth strategy going forward. And to do that effectively as well, I think we got to move away from compliance thinking or even sales process thinking to a selection process. And when I think of selection process, I think of my experience when I was a sales manager. And as a sales manager, as you all know, there's two theories to recruiting. Number one, do a lot of recruiting, put everybody on, and hopefully through that, enough people will last. Now, that might be effective somewhat, but there's a lot of carnage in that process to the people that were involved in it. And I always prefer much more of a selection process. And that's what I did at New York Life and Canada Life later on, was that selection process. And what my goal was to bring in 100 people for initial interview and to complete that interview with a career profile. From that, those 100 people would work through a selection process. And my goal was to recruit 6 and to keep my job at to recruit 4. Now, the interesting thing in going through that selection process, once I brought them in, I was not doing a lot of the work. They were going through the process and I wasn't making a decision. They were making a decision. The process helped them and myself make a decision whether this is the right career for them. And they would go along those steps. And at the end, we get that result. But the surprising thing was that regardless of whether they decided to join us or not, all of them had a better understanding of the industry and a more appreciation for the industry, our company, me as a manager, and a lot of them became clients of our firm. Why? Because they saw the professionalism of our selection process. And that's what I think we need to get to when we're starting to look at our blocks of business, so that we can take them from this unorganized fashion and move it into a way that we can really see and we can service and organize them properly, going beyond just basic compliance, but actually making them into a valuable asset for our firm and putting them in a situation where we can serve them and do what's required to benefit them. So when I look at that process, and I work with a lot of advisors and a lot of firms that are working through this, And I've found these 3 pain points. So the typical situation is the advisor comes in, or they bought that block of business, and that's 50, 60, 70% on the bottom of the clientele. First of all, a lot of times there's issues with communication because they don't have the files not up to date, the CRM's not up to date. They don't, so there's a lot of challenges in even trying to contact the client initially. And then when they finally do contact the client, book an appointment, a lot of times those appointments are inefficient because they don't really have a great relationship with the firm. And it might even take a couple of appointments until we can start to have meaningful conversations. And then the other area that I find quite interesting and possibly frustrating is that advisors will get to the point where they say, and they'll offer or get to the point where they feel the client is ready to work with them. And what they do is they offer to do something. They offer to build a plan. They offer to do quotes. Someone needs life insurance or some other need. They offer to do quotes. So they're offering to do a lot of work before they have a commitment from a client. So when you think about that process, it's so inefficient and ineffective. And of that quoting, if I survey the advisors in that quoting that they do, only about maybe 10 to 20% maximum result in sales. So there's a lot of work being done with not a lot of value and benefit created for anybody in that process. So we have to change it to more of a selection process. So let's take a look at those 3 pain points, what we might put in place to create more of a selection process that's going to be efficient and help us reach our goals and benefit the clients. So first of all, on the communication side. So I took this from Sun Life, and if you're ever looking for some great material around internet marketing, any type of digital marketing, Sun Life has a lot of great material. And this is just a letter that they have, a survey they put together, which you can send out to your clients. Now, this survey is actually saying, based on what we've experienced, we found that a lot of clients are willing to work on this basis. How do you feel about working this basis? How would you like to interact? How would you like us to interact with you? So it's more of a, what can we do to help and serve you? Great for your top clients. For clients, when you start getting into especially the C and D clients, and when you're taking on a new book, or they haven't been in contact on a regular basis, I would probably alter that letter somewhat to say something like, send out the letter. It would say, to work with you effectively, we need this information. Please email us at this address, confirm this, this, and this, and please provide that. So I would want to send out the letter where the client could either access a link or access an email, and it was their responsibility to update that information. By doing that, obviously what's going to happen is maybe only 20 or 30% respond to the first letter. Maybe you send it out every quarter or every couple of months. Over time, probably you'll get a pretty good rate of people responding, and it helps you to isolate the people that aren't responding. So now from that letter, where they've taken the action, so it's not me phoning, following up, leaving messages, trying to track everything down. I just sent it to the most recent address that I had. So now the second pain point, having a productive first appointment. If I think of any professional I go to now, what happens? I go into the office. They give me a form and they say, please fill it out. Now, I'm the first person that says, really? You want me to fill out this form? Can't I just have a discussion with the doctor? This thing's 4 pages. Now, I'm polite when I say that. I usually smile. And they say, no, you have to complete that form. So I complete it. But as I start to complete it, I start to realize, wow, I never really thought about this. I remind myself about this. I never really thought, well, this is connected to that. Oh, once I start doing the form, I realize how valuable that form is, because it helps me go back, recall my entire health situation so I can have a great appointment with the doctor. And that's what I think we need to do more of. That's something that I think most professionals probably took from our industry, but often our industry we've kind of thrown out. We don't do it any longer. So what I would want to do, or what I recommend our advisors do, is you get the letter, you get their email address. Now you send out an email invite to have an appointment. They can book it on your Calendly. Right after that is booked, automatically an email goes out I have forms for individuals as well as businesses, but we also have a system whereby someone can have an automatic email that sends out with an introductory email with their picture, has a link. They can go right on that link, fill out the questionnaire, and you get access to it immediately. As soon as it's done, you're notified and you have that information. So before I see the client, number one, I can tell whether or not they respect my process. Number two, they're going to be much more educated about their circumstances. Number three, they're going to have a lot higher need awareness. Number four is I know how to direct and lead the discussion. So it's a productive first meeting. Now, if they don't complete it, I can still have that meeting, but it's starting to give me some insight into whether they really belong to work in my firm, or maybe they're better off to deal with someone else. But it's just an other selection tool. Okay, it doesn't knock someone out completely or not, but it's just part of my selection process. Third pain point, and that's getting a commitment. And that's where I find a lot of advisors are doing a lot of work and not being paid for it. And it creates a lot of frustration. And a lot of times people are bringing in junior advisors who are not reaching their goals, and they're going to leave, even though they're great people, but they're going to leave. So we have to solve this issue. And where I think, and I'm going to share another personal story. And I was part of an estate. So I was dealing with an estate as an executor, but thank God I was the second executor. And what happened in this situation is it turned out to be a mess. And it was a trust company that was primary executor. I was secondary executor. And what I seen is that I thought, I don't want my family or people I love to ever have to go through something like this. So I'm going to get a professional executor. Now, rather than going to the firm that I was working with on that estate, I decided to go to my bank and see what they could offer. Now, I was ready to go ahead. I wanted to go ahead. I was ready to get that done. They brought in the expert, and what happened at the end? They gave me a quote. So they started talking. We talked for about 30 minutes. I was more confused after that conversation, and they left me with a quote. I went in there. I asked for a quote, but in reality, I didn't want a quote. Nobody wants a quote. What people want is they want confidence in making a decision. They want help in making the decision. What I needed was what I call in our industry, what I think all of our clients need is, we need a need-specific presentation. We need a presentation that helps define, and I'm just going to use my life example. So simple, the basics, but the basics are key. What I needed was something like this. Why do I need it? How much do I need? What's the best type for me? I needed them to say, you know what, the decision you've made to come and get this service is a wise decision. This is why people do it. This is why you came here. This is what the industry, this is all your options, and help me understand what the playing field is. And then help me understand where they're positioned and why that's a good decision to go with them. And then they could have just said, you know what, you're a client of CIBC, our fees are competitive regardless, they're within X amount of fees, whatever that is. But because you're a CIBC bank customer, we're going to give you this. I would have done it. I would have signed up. They could have said, you know, your personal banker will just complete, you know, the assets you have with us, and then you can add this, 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 and this. It would have been done. But what happened? I got a quote. A year later, now I have 4 quotes. So there's 4 people that had an opportunity to do that. No one did it because everyone's giving quotes. Everyone's focused on compliance. They're not focused on serving me, motivating me to take action and simplifying it. And that's what I think is missing sometimes in our industry. We've got away from this. So, and some people say, well, that's too simple because my clients are sophisticated. And I would say, well, I'm sure that banker looks at me and thinks I'm sophisticated. They see my title, they see my designations. I don't need a sophisticated presentation. I need a simple presentation. I need a presentation meant for someone in grade 8 or 9 to help me make a good decision. And I think that's where we have to go back to, is making it simple for clients to make decisions. And it's, where's the sale made? The sale, my view is, people don't need quotes. The sale isn't made in the quote. The sale is made when the emotional connection is made to the need. And that's what we're missing. So I'm not going to go through each of my slides here on my simple presentation, but it's pretty, you know, it's just a matter of getting to someone to understand what's your greatest, when we're talking about life insurance, what's your greatest asset, but it's the conversation around what do you want? What do you want your family to have? And regardless of what software you use, I got a simple, I have some simple calculations. You can use complicated software that kicks out a nice report with all the detail, but that detail doesn't sell. With a quote, that doesn't sell. If that's all they want, they can do it online. What do they need? They need someone to help them understand how valuable it is. It's taking that number, that 2.4 million that was kicked out by your financial planning software, and help them understand that, Joe, if something happens to you, Mary and your two daughters will get $2.4 million. With that 2.4, they can pay off the mortgage, they can do this, they can do this, they're gonna have this too. Is that what you want? Mary, if something happens to you, this is what's gonna happen. Is that what you want? Yes. Sales made. Before I ever show numbers, okay? So for me, if the sale is not made, I'm not gonna do quotes. The sale is made. Then it's just a matter of educating someone. You can rent it, you can buy it, you can put a combination plan together. But you know what, before we gotta do that anyways, we have to go through an underwriting process. So why don't we just, what most people do is they like to just write up term, get it for 2.4 million each. Get it in place. You're covered from today, or okay, not the full 2.4 million, but we can get you covered. Then we'll know exactly what we can quote and get you exact quotes, and we'll put the ideal solution together for you then. So now I know I'm going to get paid before I put together the plan. And I would say same within financial planning, whatever we do, we always want to get that commitment to, right? This is what the outcome. So when I do a plan, this is what the outcome is going to be. This is what's going to be required from you. If I put that together, are you willing to go ahead with that? Yes. Great. Let me spend some time building that plan. Great. Let's work through this or that. So we need to make sure we get that confirmation before we do the work. So in conclusion, what we need to work on, and what I think we got to go back to, is as professionals serving at the highest level. So putting ourselves in our client's situation. What do they need? Not what I need, not what compliance need. What do they need to make good decisions? How do I communicate at their level? And am I maximizing my revenue impact? Because it's that drive that helps me serve my clients better. And am I using my resources properly? If I embrace those three principles, I'm going to do a much better job for everyone that's involved in my organization, from my clients all the way through to whoever works in my organization. So what I would challenge you to do is evaluate your processes, see how you can make some improvements. If you come up with one or two or three, even minor improvements, can have a major impact. Think about, are you helping your clients understand and formulate their future and their future vision for what they want to become, and that they see you as being a part of that, as well as when they do go ahead with something, are they looking at it as just a payment, or are they seeing and they understand that that payment is what's providing, protection for their family, providing their retirement dreams, and helping them see it from that perspective rather than a compliance perspective. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if there's any questions, but thank you very much for the invite, Michael.